Hello friends, this is Jim with Science Talk. I want to bring you it's sort of an update on estimated impacts of sea level rising to how it affects specifically the U.S. Now, I've done plenty of video segments for you where we discuss the potential in sea level rise, anywhere from 1 to 3 meters by 2100. If all the ice in Antarctica melted, 57 meters worldwide increase in sea level, which is just about drown out a lot of people. But let's sort of keep it to a within the next 30 years and kind of keep a conservative rise in the sea level. If you have sea level rising, the estimation is that over 300,000 U.S. coastal homes could be impacted. So a climate change study predicts a staggering impact of the rising oceans on coastal communities within the next 30 years. As many as specifically 311,000 homes face being flooded every 2 weeks within the next 30 years. Every 2 weeks? Would you want to live in such a house? The rising, swelling oceans, don't forget, it's not only the melting of the land ice that contributes to rising sea level, it's thermal expansion itself as the surface water increase in temperature. You warm up the water, surface water is going to expand, thermal expansion, sea levels rise. Well, you're warming up the land. Land ice melts, adds to the volume. Sea levels rise. So you have two mechanisms by which sea levels will rise: the melting and addition of land ice and thermal expansion of heating the water itself. So the swelling oceans are forecast repeatedly to soak coastal residences collectively worth $120 billion with a B dollars by 2045 if greenhouse gas emissions are not severely curtailed or cut. This is, of course, a huge financial as well as an emotional toll on those impacted directly. The impact could well be staggering, says Christina Dahl, who's a senior climate scientist at the Union of Concerned Scientists. This level of flooding would be a tipping point where people in these communities would think it's unsustainable. Even homes along the Gulf Coast that are elevated would be affected. Elevated meaning up on pilings of some sort. As they'd have to drive through salt water to get to work, or issues with their kids' schools being shut down. But not only that, even if you're sitting on pilings, you got this water underneath there. What about wave action, storm action, that sort of stuff? So it could very well be that the homes are probably not sellable. People just walk away. And let the banks eat the mortgage. We pay back after we bail them out. No way, right? So the Union of Concerned Scientists use federal data from a high sea level rise scenario projected by NOAA and combine it with property data from the online real estate company Zillow to quantify the level of risk across the lower 48. Now, to be quite honest, the only way you're going to get politicians to pull the stick out of their back ends and light a fire there, get them going to do something, is to wave dollar amounts at them. That's the only thing they understand. Money. They don't understand the science. You wave dollar amounts in the face, then it might have to be moved to do something. So, under this scenario where planet warming emissions are barely constrained and the seas rise by about 6.5 feet globally by the end of the century. Okay, that's about 2 meters. So that's between that one, that's exactly right in the middle between that 1 and 3 meter projections that I've discussed with you before in the past. So 311,000 homes along the U.S. coastline will face flooding on average 26 times a year. That's every 2 weeks I just mentioned. over the next 30 years, which is a typical lifespan for a new mortgage. The losses would multiply by the end of the century, with the research warning that as many as 2.4 million homes, worth around $1 trillion in total, could be put at risk. Low-lying states would be particularly prone, with 1 million homes in Florida, 250,000 homes in New Jersey, and 143,000 homes in New York at risk of chronic flooding by 2100. Well, hell, if the sea level is projected to rise by 6.5 feet, most of Florida will be underwater anyway. And of course, what does this do to property values? They drop, because the risk is now catching up. The perceptions of risk are catching up with the reality. So yeah, as you can imagine, this is going to wreak havoc on the housing market, yada yada. Unfortunately, years ahead, many coastal communities will face declining property values as risk perceptions catch up with reality, said Rachel Cletus, an economist and climate policy director at UCS. In contrast with previous housing market crashes, values of properties chronically inundated due to sea level rise are unlikely to recover and will only continue to go further underwater, literally and figuratively. The literally part. The report does not factor in future technological advances that could ameliorate the impact of rising seas, although the U.S. would be starting from a relatively low base compared with some countries, given that it does not have a national sea level rise plan. And future technological advances, let's be honest, not likely with this current administration and Trump's EPA policies. Very, very concerning. Lack of. And by the way, I have a note here. The Trump administration has moved to erase this issue from consideration for federally funded infrastructure. Basically tell him, screw you, you're on your own. He's not going to provide funding to help. The mayor of Miami, South Miami, Philip Stardust, said people on the waterfront won't be able to stay unless they are very wealthy. I mentioned earlier thermal expansion. Oceans are rising by about 3 millimeters a year due to thermal expansion of seawater. And then you melt the glaciers in Greenland and Antarctica, and you have that 1 to 3 meter rise estimate I've discussed with you time and time before. NASA did announce that the amount of ice lost annually from Antarctica has tripled since 2012 to 241 billion, again with a B, billion tons a year. That's a lot. So basically, with this rise, you're going to force 13 million Americans to be dislocated, displaced. They're going to have to move. So you've got states like with high average elevation, like Arizona, Colorado, Wyoming, that kind of stuff there, the plateau area, they could see an influx, a high population surge. Philip Stoddard, the mayor of South Miami, said, "My flood insurance bill just went up by $100 this year. It went up $100 the year before. Lucky it only went up $100. So, wanted to bring you that quick story. Again, the science is, of course, always fascinating and telling as to what's going on, but when it comes to actually impacting what people's lives, you usually have to kind of discuss the economic aspects. And when you're going to have that amount of money for the potential loss of your home, that is extremely impactful, definitely on an individual basis. And taken collectively, that could lead to major economic problems for the U.S., at the very least. So, thank you for your time, and we'll talk soon. Hello, folks. This is Jim asking for your help. I want to grow this channel significantly. I want to increase the number of people who subscribe to my channel. I want to increase the number of people who are supporting patrons on Patreon for this channel. Patreon.com/Science Talk with Jim Massa. I do not receive funding of any sort from anyone. So the information I share with you is the information as found published in the peer-reviewed journals. No propaganda, no BS, just the science, and of course I give you my interpretations and analyses based on my experience as a scientist. So please tell others of the work I do here, tell others of my channel. Share my videos, post them on other social media platforms. But we need to disseminate this information to more and more people, to a wider audience. And I need your help in doing that. For those of you who are already patrons and support me on Patreon, thank you. Thank you for your support and continued support. Together we can do this. So you'll find details in the description box below how to support me on Patreon. And thank you. Thank you for your help. Thank you for your continued support. It does mean a lot to me. We can do this.